In a shocking twist that nobody could have possibly ever seen coming, America wants another country's gas and minerals. Wow, how original. I've never seen them want to do this before. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy has shared that he is ready to sign a stalled minerals deal with the United States, but urged that the US needs to stand strongly behind Ukraine amid its war with Russia. The statement comes only the day after his meeting with President Trump and Vance devolved into a near screaming match, shocking the world. This exchange will be discussed by professors and history teachers for the rest of our lives. Trump really thought he ate that. Like, oh, okay, let me just put on my full beat of clown makeup, show the entire world my whole hand of cards, piss off every single ally we've ever had, and let my ventriloquist doll-looking ass Vice President Vance yell at a world leader. Win, win, win. Everyone in the whole world thinks you're so smart and cool. Zelenskyy posted a long thread on X on March 2nd, saying that he's grateful to Trump and Congress for bipartisan support for Ukraine, acknowledging tough dialogue, but not directly mentioning the clown show on Friday. He also shared that it is, quote, understandable the US might look for dialogue with Putin, but strongly and frequently warned that Russia cannot be trusted to uphold a ceasefire, calling the country the enemy. One post in the thread reads, "We are ready to sign the minerals agreement, and it will be the first step towards security guarantees, but it's not enough. We need more than just that. A ceasefire without security guarantees is dangerous for Ukraine. We've been fighting for 3 years, and Ukrainian people need to know that America is on our side." So what exactly is this mineral deal? What does it include, and why is the US so invested in making sure they get it? And what does China have to do with it? Spoiler alert, more than you'd think. First, a quick lay of the land. What exactly are we dealing with here? Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022. The invasion is the largest and deadliest conflict in Europe since World War II, causing thousands of military casualties and tens of thousands of Ukrainian civilian casualties. As of right now, Russian troops are occupying 20% of Ukraine. At least 8 million Ukrainians have been internally displaced, and at least 8.2 have fled the country, meaning it's also Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. The invasion has been condemned by, everyone. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution condemning the invasion and demanding Russia's full withdrawal, which they ignored. The International Court of Justice ordered Russia to halt military operations, which they ignored. The Baltic states and Poland declared Russia a terrorist state. The International Criminal Court opened an investigation into crimes against humanity, war crimes, abduction of Ukrainian children, and genocide against Ukrainians. And now, France and the UK have said they're ready to deploy British and French troops to Ukraine to help preserve the peace in the event an agreement is signed to end the war. During the Biden administration, the US was providing various support to Ukraine, including ammunition equipment and military hardware. In 2022, such shipments were announced every 2 weeks, sometimes even just 5 or 6 days apart. Ukraine has generally depended on this lifeline of arms from the US, starting from the day Russian troops crossed the border. But with no new shipments announced since the inauguration, the final shipment of Biden-era support has slowed to a trickle. Trump is now saying the US want payback for military aid, and the two leaders were expected to sign an agreement that would give the United States access to Ukraine's mineral wealth. But obviously, that meeting went terribly. So let's break down this deal. What's actually in it, and what does it mean? There are parts of the deal that we as the public still aren't privy to, but what we do know is that the draft agreement seeks to establish a reconstruction investment fund that would be jointly managed by the US and Ukraine. This all comes into resource development, meaning the US and Ukraine would jointly manage and develop Ukraine's natural resources, which are currently state-owned. A joint fund between the two countries, like a shared bank account, would receive 50% of Ukraine's resource revenues. These fund profits would be reinvested, quote, at least annually for the sake of Ukraine's economic recovery. But the details on this part are a little hazy. At least annually annually doesn't really say much. Like, I go to the gym at least annually, you know what I mean? The deal doesn't include security guarantees and only supports Ukraine's pursuit of security assurances. In basic terms, the US, for some reason, thinks Ukraine should pay them back for helping defend against an illegal invasion, and that payback should be their valuable natural mineral and gas resources. Wow, the US wants oil. So fresh and new and interesting and definitely not a pattern. The US initially demanded a $500 billion share of Ukraine's rare earths and other minerals in exchange for the aid it has already provided. But Zelenskyy rejected that idea, saying that agreeing to it would amount to selling his country. Trump subsequently called Zelenskyy a dictator.
Did I say that?
So yeah, can somebody explain to Trump what a dictator is? Does he know? Zelenskyy has also said that the US was demanding that any future aid would have to be repaid with double the amount, which sounds suspiciously like a really bad deal. That's essentially a loan with an 100% interest rate. Zelenskyy said he wouldn't be signing any deal that will leave the next 10 generations of Ukrainians in debt. Some of these mineral riches are already in areas that are under Russian occupation, and Zelenskyy has argued that a key reason the West should support Ukraine is to prevent more of these strategically important resources from falling into Russia's hands. The deposits of critical resources in Ukraine, along with Ukraine's globally important energy and food production potential, are among the key predatory objectives of the Russian Federation in this war, and this is our opportunity for growth. So it's clear other countries want what Ukraine has. They wish they were her. Let's break down what these minerals are and why the US is so desperado to get them. Ukraine has deposits of 22 of the 34 minerals identified by the European Union as critical. What's a critical mineral, you ask? Well, the definition varies between different countries, and it can be a little arbitrary depending on context. But by and large, these are raw materials for which there are no viable substitutes with current technology, and they're either used for common products or their supply is dominated by one or a few producers. So important, but can be hard to get, much like a wife. Let's break down what they are and how much Ukraine has according to the Ukrainian Geological Survey. Graphite. Ukraine has about 6% of global reserves. Graphite is used in so many things, from pencils to lithium-ion batteries, which are in our computers, phones, hybrid or electric cars. Graphite is also used in applications for nuclear reactors, and Ukraine has one of the largest deposits in Europe. Lithium. 1 to 2% share of global reserves are in Ukraine. Ukraine has one of Europe's largest confirmed lithium reserves, estimated at 500,000 metric tons. Lithium is used also in batteries as well as grid storage, which represents 80% of its demand. Lithium is sort of one of the key materials used to move industries to renewable energy, and lithium salts are used in medication for bipolar or depression, which, we're all going to need these pills if things keep going the way they're going. Titanium, of which Ukraine has 1% of global reserves. Ukraine has the largest titanium reserves in Europe and could be capable of meeting metallic titanium demand for both the US and EU for 25 years. Titanium is used for aircraft, spacecraft, and missiles, as well as golf clubs, crutches, bikes. It's also used as piping in power plants due to its resistance to corrosion. The more you know. Uranium. 2 to 4% of global reserves are in Ukraine. You've heard of uranium. It's the primary reactive material used in nuclear power generation and nuclear reactors that run naval ships and submarines. It's also used for nuclear weapons. Whee! Something I love thinking about right now. So I just love, yes, let's think about that. Ukraine has other cool stuff too, but I can barely pronounce all of these names, so here they are on screen. Ukraine also has a lot of natural gas reserves. As of 2017, they held 39 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves, ranking 23rd in the world and accounting for about 1% of the world's total natural gas reserves. The gas has been a major source of issues for Russia and Ukraine since 2005. These disputes have been complex and remain to be so I'm gonna break it down in like an overly simple way. Many European countries are reliant on natural gas imports from Russian suppliers. Russia provides around a quarter of the natural gas consumed in the European Union, and about 80% of the exports have to travel through pipelines in Ukraine before reaching Europe. Wow, yeah, another war that has heaps to do with oil. Yay, so surprising. This never happens. So just why does the US want in on this so bad? Well, the US largely depends on imports for the minerals it needs, most of which come from China, who have dominated the market for a long time. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, China is literally responsible for nearly 90% of global processing of rare earth minerals and the largest producer of graphite and titanium. Reed Blakemore, Director of Research and Programs at the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Center, said these significant reserves are, quote, foundational resources for the US defense industry and wider high-tech economy. Defense industry? High-tech economy? Batteries? Experts have long warned that relying on China for strategic materials is risky. Trump has threatened a trade war with China, so it would make sense that the US wants to stop its reliance on imports of these materials to produce goods and military tech. Trump has been pretty open that he views China as a major threat to the US, considering it their biggest economic rival and an obstacle to making America great again. I can't even say it. His economic policies are focused on addressing Chinese trade practices, supply chain reliance, and geopolitical strategies. The recent tariffs placed by the US on hundreds of billions of dollars in Chinese imports were designed to make US products more competitive by increasing the cost of Chinese goods, thereby encouraging businesses and consumers to opt for domestic alternatives. But China retaliated, imposing a ban on rare minerals being exported to the US, meaning the US is going to be in even more dire straits to get their hands on this stuff without securing it from somewhere else. So I guess Trump sees a resolution to the Ukraine-Russia war as an opportunity to secure alternative resources and reduce the US dependence on China, which would allow Trump to take a more aggressive approach towards it with less consequences should he choose to do that. China and Russia have also been getting on really well recently, with both countries viewing the US as an adversary. China has supplied Russia with armored vehicles, satellite technology, materials, among other things, and has facilitated the reconstruction of Russia's defense industrial base, as well as undercut efforts to isolate Russia diplomatically. So, they're vibing, and Trump does not like it. But here's the twist, okay? Here's the twist. Russia now has taken control of around 20% of Ukraine's minerals since the invasion. So obviously, you've got to get them out of there if you want to get in there. Even if the deal went through, it could be years before any American investor gets a return on their money. And it's not like you just dig this stuff up. Even with the shared investment fund, it could take yonks to get new mines going. So now what? Fuck if I know, eh? Anything I guess would be wrong. Anything I guess would be wrong. Anything I theorize would be wrong. But it's safe to say that none of this is good news. These are scary times in the international relations space. And honestly, it's okay to be scared. I'm scared. I just make my little jokes and try to make sure we have all the info that we need, but I'm scared. The US has fought wars for oil and resources before. As much as it feels like it, not everything happening here is brand new. While we laugh, cringe, cry, or outright seethe at the spectacle of it all, it's important to remember that beneath the chaos, real people are paying the price. Real human beings who were just going about their day on February 4th, 2022 are paying with their homes, their safety, and their lives. Thank you for watching, everybody. I have some advice to share with you. Someone was leaving a mean comment for me, but they told me to calm down and have a glass of water and sit outside. Low-key, really good advice. It totally works. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by the world right now, have a go. Big glass of water, sit outside. Genuinely improved my life. Shout outs to that person. I love my haters. Make sure you like and subscribe. We do 5 videos a week on everything happening in the world, everything happening on the internet, everything happening in your mind. We're doing stuff about that too.